It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the day I celebrated my accomplishments, surrounded by the people I loved most. But in one single moment, everything I knew about my life was shattered. The truth, so painful and raw, came crashing down on me like a tidal wave. It was at my birthday dinner, of all places, where the ultimate betrayal would be revealed. My husband, Mark, and my sister Natalie, two people I trusted above all others, decided to announce their secret in front of everyone. Natalie wasn't just pregnant. She was pregnant with Mark's child. And just like that, my entire world turned upside down. But what happened next, it will haunt them forever. My name is Brenda, and the night I learned the truth, I was just an ordinary woman, married for 8 years, a loving wife, and a proud sister. But that was before I found out that everything I had built, everything I had loved, had been a lie. It all started like any other birthday evening. The restaurant was cozy, lit just perfectly with warm candles flickering on the tables, casting a soft glow over the gathering of friends and family. The laughter was easy, the chatter light. My husband Mark sat beside me, looking just the way he always did, handsome, with a slight smile, as if he knew something I didn't. Natalie, my sister, sat across from me, grinning from ear to ear, her eyes twinkling like she was keeping a big secret. As I took in the warm buzz of the room, something about the moment felt off. A subtle, gnawing feeling at the back of my mind that I couldn't quite place. But it wasn't until Natalie stood up to speak that everything changed. She cleared her throat and smiled widely, causing everyone to fall silent. "I have an announcement to make," she said, her voice too calm for what was about to come. My heart skipped a beat. The room waited for her words, some people leaning in closer, others just smiling politely. I glanced at Mark, who was strangely still. Something in his posture shifted, but I couldn't quite figure it out. And then she dropped the bombshell. "I'm pregnant," Natalie said, her voice sweet as honey, but the words hit me like a brick. I froze, blinking at her in disbelief. But it wasn't just that she was pregnant. No, she followed it with a chilling statement that sent shockwaves through my entire being. "And the father is Mark," she continued, her smile growing wider, eyes glinting with an expression I had never seen before. It felt like time stopped. Every noise in the room seemed to fade, leaving only the pounding of my heart and the dry, bitter taste in my mouth. I turned to Mark, searching his face for any hint of apology, any sign that he was going to stop this madness. But there was nothing. His face was pale, his lips pressed together tightly, as though he were preparing for an argument he didn't want to have. He didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he looked straight at the floor, his fingers curling into tight fists on the table.
My throat went dry.
What is this?" I whispered, but the words barely made it past my lips. Mark swallowed hard, his gaze still fixed on the table. His voice, when it came, was weak and quiet. "I'm sorry, Brenda. It's true." His words were like a slap, sending waves of disbelief and rage through me. The tension in the room was suffocating. I could hear my own pulse roaring in my ears as I stared at my husband, my sister, the two people I trusted more than anyone in the world, revealing that they had been hiding this monumental secret from me. It wasn't just that they betrayed me. It was that they had done it so publicly at my birthday dinner, in front of everyone who mattered to me. I felt my chest tighten, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. But the worst part? They weren't even sorry. In the silence that followed, I glanced around the room. Our guests, friends, family, were frozen, unsure of how to react. The air was thick with confusion and discomfort. But as I looked at Natalie, I saw the flicker of something else in her eyes. It was a smug satisfaction, a sense of triumph that sent a chill down my spine. She was proud of herself, proud of the mess she had made of my life. I was no longer the center of attention. I was the one who had been humiliated. Mark's hand, which had always been warm and comforting, now felt cold and distant beside me. I wanted to scream, to lash out at him, at Natalie, but I couldn't. Not in front of everyone. Instead, I did the one thing I knew I could control. I stood up and walked out. I didn't care that the room went silent. I didn't care that my guests were now whispering in hushed tones. My life had just been shattered, and I couldn't stay there, pretending like everything was fine. As I rushed toward the door, I heard Mark's voice, low and pleading. "Brenda, please let me explain." But I couldn't hear him. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside, the rush of emotions overwhelming me. My heart was pounding, my head spinning. I leaned against the brick wall of the restaurant, my hands shaking. I thought I was ready for this. I thought I could handle anything. But nothing could have prepared me for the truth. For the betrayal of the two people I loved most in the world. As I tried to steady myself, something caught my eye, an envelope sticking out from under the door of the car I had parked nearby. My stomach churned as I approached it, almost knowing what I would find. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a divorce petition signed by Mark. The truth hit me like a freight train. They had been planning this for months. They weren't just having an affair. They had already made arrangements to leave me. This wasn't a mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. It was deliberate. The cold, hard truth was that they had been plotting to take everything from me, all along. And now they were going to do it, in front of everyone. I stood there, the divorce papers in my hands, my heart breaking into pieces. What was I going to do? How could I fight this? How could I trust anyone again? I wasn't sure, but one thing was for certain. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of my revenge. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I clutched the divorce papers, trying to understand the cold, hard reality of what I was reading. My chest ached with a heaviness I couldn't explain, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I wanted to scream, to shout at Mark, to tear the truth out of him. But there was nothing left to say. I had always prided myself on being strong, capable of handling anything life threw my way. But this was something different. This was a betrayal so deep, so calculated, that I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. The walk back to my car felt like an eternity. I could barely hear my own footsteps. The world around me seemed to blur as I replayed the scene in my head. Natalie's smug face, Mark's silence, the sickening realization that everything I had thought was true had been a lie. When I finally reached my car, I sat inside, the engine running but my hands still gripping the steering wheel. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of it all. How had this happened? How had I been so blind to the signs? I thought I knew my husband, my sister. But it turns out I didn't know anything at all. I looked at the divorce petition in my hands again, the words becoming blurry as tears welled up in my eyes. Mark had signed it. He had made the decision to leave me long before the dinner, long before Natalie's announcement.
But why?
What had I done wrong? Was I not enough? Was I not the wife he wanted? I didn't know the answers, and I hated not knowing. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't face them. Not yet. Not until I could figure out what to do next. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. I drove aimlessly, my mind consumed by thoughts of Mark, of Natalie, and of the betrayal that had shattered my life. I could still hear her voice in my head, sweet and innocent, announcing her pregnancy like it was a celebratory moment. But I knew better now. It wasn't just about a baby. It was about the destruction of everything I had worked so hard to build. As I drove, I called a friend of mine, Jessica. She had always been the one to listen, to give me the advice I needed. I needed someone to ground me, to help me make sense of all of this. She picked up after the second ring. "Hey, girl, what's up?" I could barely find my voice. "Jessica, I don't know what to do." Her tone shifted, concern creeping into her voice. "What happened? Are you okay?" I let out a shaky breath, trying to keep the tears at bay. "No, I'm not okay. Mark and Natalie, they've been having an affair. She's pregnant, Jessica. She's carrying his baby." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Jessica didn't say anything for a moment, and then she finally spoke, her voice soft. "Brenda, I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine what you're going through right now." "I thought I knew them," I said, my voice cracking. "I thought they were the people I could trust the most. And now I'm left with nothing. Don't say that. You're not alone. You have me, you have your friends. You're going to get through this. I wiped away the tears that had started to fall. I don't know how. I don't know what to do next. You need to take a step back, Brenda. You need to think about what's best for you. Don't let them control your emotions. They've already taken enough from you. I pulled over to the side of the road, taking a deep breath. I knew Jessica was right. I needed to regain control of my life. But as I sat there, staring at the darkened street in front of me, I realized something. This wasn't just about Mark or Natalie anymore.
It was about me.
I had been played, manipulated. But I would not be their victim. I would fight for what was mine. But what was my next move? The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The betrayal festered in my chest, growing bigger with each passing hour. I could hear Natalie's words echoing in my mind, her cold, triumphant tone as she announced her pregnancy. I couldn't look at Mark without feeling disgusted. He had been my husband for 8 years. I had given him everything, my love, my loyalty, my trust, and this is what he had done in return? I couldn't even bring myself to speak to him. But as I sat in my empty house, the silence was deafening. I couldn't keep running away from this. I needed answers. I needed to know everything. I started by digging through the papers in Mark's office. I knew there had to be more evidence, more lies hidden in plain sight. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Hidden at the back of a drawer was a stack of documents, legal papers, divorce petitions, and financial agreements. My stomach churned as I picked them up. Mark had been preparing for this moment. He had been planning to leave me for months. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. All the late nights, the odd behavior, the growing distance between us, it had all been part of his plan. I wasn't just blindsided by the affair. I had been blindsided by his calculated decision to leave me for Natalie. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I stared at the divorce papers in front of me, the realization sinking in. Mark had already signed them. It was over. It had been over for a long time. But as I sat there, staring at the cold, hard truth, another thought struck me. I wasn't the only one he had betrayed. It was time to confront Natalie. But this time, it wasn't going to be just about the affair. It was about everything. The confrontation with Natalie was inevitable. I couldn't keep running away from the truth. She had to know that I knew. She had to feel the weight of what she had done. I called her. She didn't answer. I called again. No answer. I was done with waiting. I wasn't going to let her hide from this. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I drove to her apartment. Each mile felt like 1,000. The closer I got, the more my hands shook, but I couldn't turn back. When I arrived, I didn't bother knocking. I walked right in, her door already ajar. She was standing in the living room, her back to me, staring out the window. She didn't even turn around when I entered. "Natalie," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. She slowly turned to face me, a smirk playing at the corner of her lips. "You came. I didn't expect you to be this quick," she said, her tone almost too casual for what had just happened. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I demanded, stepping closer. "How could you betray me like this? How could you do this to him?" Her smile faltered, but only for a second. "Brenda, I didn't want to hurt you. But you weren't giving him what he needed. Mark and I, well, we just fit."
Fit.
I repeated, my voice rising in anger. "You fit, but I didn't?" She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. "It's not like that. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did. We're in love, and there's nothing you can do about it now." I stared at her, the words sinking in. The final betrayal, the final humiliation. Mark wasn't just leaving me for her. She had manipulated him into thinking she was the better choice. I had always been there for her, always supported her, and this is how she repaid me. But I wasn't done. Not yet. These chapters continue to build Brenda's emotional turmoil, leading to her growing resolve to confront both Mark and Natalie. The tension escalates as she uncovers more of their betrayal, setting the stage for her final decision on how to move forward. I had always prided myself on my ability to keep my emotions in check, to not let life's hurdles break me. But this betrayal was different. I had been brought to my knees, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't know how to stand back up. I spent the next few days in a fog, walking around my house, doing the bare minimum. I would cook dinner, but the taste of the food was never right. I would sit on the couch, but the quiet felt oppressive, suffocating. The laughter and joy that used to fill my home were gone, replaced by the echo of my thoughts, each one louder than the last. Mark's attempts to reach out were futile. I didn't pick up his calls, I didn't respond to his texts. Each message felt like another stab in the heart. His words, apologies, and promises of love, none of it meant anything now. The trust had been shattered, and no amount of pleading could put it back together. But then, something inside me shifted. I could feel it, a slow, steady rise of determination. I wasn't going to sit here, paralyzed by their lies and their betrayals. I wasn't going to be their victim. They had taken enough from me. My heart, my trust,
My time.
but they were not going to take my future. They weren't going to define me. I made a decision. A hard decision, but the only one I could make. It was time to fight back. I wasn't going to let them walk away from this unscathed, not without facing the consequences of their actions. I called Jessica again. She was the one person I could always count on, no matter what. "You okay?" she asked as soon as she picked up, her voice soft and concerned. "I'm not okay," I said, exhaling sharply. "But I'm going to be." Jessica stayed quiet for a beat, then responded with, "What do you need?" I took a deep breath. "I need your help. I'm going to find out everything. Everything I need to know. I want to expose them. I want the truth out in the open." Jessica's voice was steady now. "You've got it. We'll do this together. But you're not doing it alone." With Jessica's support, I hired a private investigator to dig into every detail of Mark and Natalie's lives. The investigator's promise was simple: uncover the full extent of their betrayal and expose everything. But as I hung up the phone, a nagging feeling settled in my stomach. What if this didn't go the way I thought? What if uncovering the truth only led to more pain? What would I do if the truth was even worse than I imagined? The days that followed felt like a waiting game. I knew I had made the right choice, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. Would the investigator find anything? What would I do when the full truth came to light? And if I did expose them, how would I live with the fallout? Jessica stayed close, offering her support and distracting me with small things that helped me regain my focus. We went to lunch, she took me to the movies, and sometimes we'd sit in silence, just being there for each other. I had never appreciated her friendship more than I did in those moments. But as the investigator delved deeper, the reality of the situation began to set in. I wasn't just dealing with an affair. I was dealing with a calculated plan, a betrayal on a scale I hadn't fully understood. The first report came in a week later. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, my heart racing. I wasn't sure I was ready for the truth, but there was no turning back now. As I read through the details, everything clicked into place. The affair had been going on longer than I had known, and it wasn't just physical. Mark and Natalie had been planning their life together for months, even before the dinner that had destroyed my world. They had been in contact regularly, making plans, securing finances, and even talking about buying a house together. The worst part? Mark had been making excuses, lying to me about his late nights at work, about his friendship with Natalie. All along, he had been pretending everything was fine, while secretly laying the groundwork for his escape. But the most damning part was yet to come. There, in the investigator's report, was a mention of a conversation between Natalie and Mark, recorded by the private investigator. They had talked about me, about how easy it had been to manipulate me, how I was too trusting, and how I wouldn't suspect a thing until it was too late. That was it. That was the final straw. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was furious. This wasn't just an affair. This was calculated manipulation, and I was done being their pawn. I had spent enough time being the victim. Now, it was time for Mark and Natalie to face the consequences of their actions. I couldn't sit back any longer and let them think they could get away with this. It was time to confront them, to stand up for myself, to take control of my own story. I arranged a meeting. Mark and Natalie agreed to meet at a coffee shop, unaware of what was coming. I walked in, my head held high, my heart beating steadily in my chest. As soon as they saw me, their faces shifted. Mark's lips tightened, and Natalie looked almost nervous. But it was too late for apologies, too late for excuses. They had crossed the line, and now they would pay the price. "You think you can just walk away from this, don't you?" I asked, my voice steady and calm, despite the storm raging inside me. "You think that I'm just going to sit here and let you ruin my life? Let you walk away with no consequences?" Natalie's face flickered with anger, but she didn't say anything. Mark, on the other hand, opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, stopping him. "No," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "You don't get to explain yourself. Not anymore. You've taken enough from me." I dropped the stack of papers on the table, slamming them down hard enough that they scattered across the coffee shop. "This is the proof," I said. "The proof that you've been lying to me, that you've been planning this behind my back. I want everyone to know the truth, Mark. I want everyone to know what you did. I won't be your victim anymore." But then, Mark said something that stopped me in my tracks. "You don't know everything, Brenda. There's still more." I stared at him, my anger boiling over. "What do you mean, there's more? What else could they possibly have done?" I couldn't help but stare at Mark, my heart racing. What more could there possibly be? My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the table, trying to hold onto some semblance of control. The last few weeks had been a blur of emotions, anger, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of loss. But now, I was standing on the precipice of something new, something I could no longer avoid. "You think you can just walk away from this?" I said again, but my voice now had an edge to it, something sharper, more commanding. "You've taken enough from me already. I've been your wife for years. I've been loyal, trusting, and this is what you do. And now, after everything, you tell me there's more?" Mark's eyes flickered uneasily, and I could see the guilt written all over his face. For the first time, he didn't look confident. He looked defeated. But that didn't mean I was going to let him off the hook. Not now, not after everything he had done. "I've done a lot of things I regret," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But there's still something you don't know. Something that changes everything." I felt a chill run down my spine. What was this new revelation? Could there possibly be something worse than the affair, the lies, and the emotional manipulation? My mind raced with possibilities. Had he been lying to me about something else? Or was this another excuse for his behavior? He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his hand trembling as he pushed his coffee cup away. Natalie sat across from us, her face tight, unwilling to make eye contact. She was suddenly quiet, something that had never happened before. I leaned in, refusing to back down. "Tell me, Mark. Tell me what else you've been hiding." Mark looked at Natalie, then back at me, his eyes filled with hesitation. "It's not just about me and Natalie," he said slowly. "It's about something you'll never be able to forgive. It's about the truth of how long this has been going on. And there's someone else involved. Someone you never would have guessed." My mind went numb. Someone else? Who else could possibly be involved in this web of lies? And why had Mark waited this long to tell me? I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for him to continue, but his silence only fueled my dread. "You've been hiding something, Mark," I said, my voice low but filled with certainty. "And I'm going to find out what it is. So help me, I'll get to the bottom of this, no matter what." I had been patient long enough.
Too long, in fact.
The time for explanations, apologies, and excuses was over. The betrayal had already cut deep, and now, with Mark finally admitting there was more to the story, I was more determined than ever to put an end to it all. There was no going back. I wasn't going to let them ruin my life any longer. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever Mark was about to reveal. The moment felt heavy, like the weight of the world was pressing down on me. But there was something else too, something I hadn't fully acknowledged yet. The truth wasn't just about Mark and Natalie anymore.
It was about me.
About reclaiming my power, my strength, and my peace. Who's the third person? I asked, trying to steady my nerves. Who else is involved in this mess? Mark looked down at his hands, unwilling to meet my gaze. I could see him struggling with the truth, his guilt seeping through the cracks in his facade. But this time, there was no sympathy left in me. I wasn't interested in his excuses. I was interested in the truth, and nothing else. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. It's my brother, Jake. My head spun.
What?
Your brother? I repeated, disbelief flooding my mind. How is Jake involved in this? Why would he? It's complicated, Mark interrupted, his voice shaking. Jake and we've always had our issues. But when this all started, he was there. He was helping me make sense of things. And, eventually, we ended up getting too close. I blinked, trying to process what I was hearing. Mark and his brother? Had they really been scheming behind my back? Was this some sort of twisted game to them? How long? I asked, my voice tight. How long has this been going on between you and Jake? You were sleeping with him too. Mark looked up, his eyes filled with shame. Not like that, he said quickly, as if that would somehow make this revelation less damaging. It wasn't physical, Brenda. It was emotional. But it was just as wrong. We were both lost. Both looking for validation. And that's how this all started. I stared at him, my mind reeling. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. My husband and his brother had not only been betraying me emotionally, they had been feeding off each other's vulnerabilities. It made me sick just thinking about it. Jake had been more than just a bystander in this mess. He had been an active participant. And that was just the beginning of the betrayal. Mark wasn't the only one who had played a part in tearing apart my life. There was one more person to confront. One more person who would answer for the pain they had caused. I stood up abruptly, my hands trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. I'm done with you, I said to Mark, my voice steady but cold. This madness ends now. And I'm going to make sure that everyone knows the truth. Including Jake. The final confrontation loomed ahead. I could feel it in my bones, this unstoppable force that was pushing me toward the truth and pushing me toward justice. I wasn't just going to let this slide. I wasn't going to let Mark and Natalie off the hook. I was going to take back everything they had stolen from me, my trust, my happiness, and my peace of mind. It was time to meet with Jake. I had no idea what to expect, but I knew I couldn't keep running. This had to be addressed. No more avoiding, no more lies. I couldn't let my life be defined by this betrayal. I had to do what was necessary to protect myself. I arrived at Jake's place a few days later. I had a gut feeling that this conversation would be unlike any I had ever had before. The tension between us was palpable the moment he opened the door. His eyes widened as he took in my expression. But there was no going back now. Brenda, I didn't think you'd come, Jake said, his voice strained. He looked nervous. Good. He should be. I folded my arms and stood my ground. You think I'm just going to let you and your brother walk away from this? Let you destroy everything I've worked for? Let you destroy me?
No, Jake.
I'm here to make sure you both pay for what you've done. Jake swallowed hard, his face shifting between guilt and frustration. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you. Don't pretend like you didn't know exactly what you were doing, I shot back. You helped him. You both planned this. You're just as responsible for my pain as Mark is. You need to own it. For a moment, Jake said nothing. Then, he dropped his head and muttered, I'm sorry. I shook my head, feeling the weight of his apology crash over me. But it didn't matter anymore. I had already moved on. This wasn't about forgiving them. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about my own freedom. I took a step back, looking at Jake one last time. You've both ruined something beautiful. But I'm done. This is my life now, and I'm not going to let you destroy it any longer. As I turned to walk away, I felt the final weight lift from my shoulders. Mark, Natalie, Jake, they could do whatever they wanted now. I had finally broken free. But as I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And that was all that mattered. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. It took a long time to heal, and I'm still a work in progress. I want to ask you guys, have you ever had a moment that felt like an ending but turned out to be a new beginning? Let me know in the comments below if my story resonated with you. I'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a like and subscribe for more stories. It really helps the channel out. See you in the next one.